Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on the front page of Nigerian newspapers. And I begin with the Nation newspaper. The major story here, of course, is the story of Fubara Wike striking a deal. And the writer there says, Warring camp sign 8-point agreement after presidential intervention. And by the corner, you see the terms there. All matters in court by Fubara and his team shall be withdrawn immediately. All impeachment proceedings should be dropped immediately. The House, as led by Martin Amehule, shall be recognized alongside the 27 members resigned from the PDP. Those were some of the resolutions reached for that agreement. And then another story here. President pledges ease of doing newspaper business and pan leaders at Asu Villa. And INEC fixes by-elections into Senate House, others for February. That's the story at the top corner there. Budget 2024 committees ordered to submit reports. Benin, Niger, Togo, or Nigeria, $11.16 million electricity bill. That's a huge one there. We'll move over now to the front page of the Blueprint. Still talking about the Fubara Wike feud. Tinubu steps in, orders resolution of Rivers crisis, and some riders there. Impeachment move must stop, court cases dropped. Amehule remains speaker, lawmakers to get their dues. Governor to resubmit ex-commissioners' names, represent 2024 budget. Another story here says INEC set for rerun by election in 34 constituencies. Polls constitute 2.8% of 1,191 petitions. Well, Kanu, we are sure of victory at Supreme Court. Deputy Governor is speaking. And those are some of the stories you find on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. We move over now to the First News newspaper. And the major story here is still talking about President Tinubu stakeholders brokering peace and Rivers crisis. Riders here say, as Wike Fubara signed an 8-point agreement, Assembly to stop impeachment proceedings, Fubara to drop all court cases, Speaker Amehule, 27 defector lawmakers be recognized, Assembly members to choose venue for plenary. Another story here, Appeal Court upholds Governor of Interior's election, fines Binani 1 million naira. INEC tentatively fixes by-election rerun polls for February the 1st, 2024. Well, to die, a sad story. To die as fire raises ex-governor Akala's residence. And at the top corner, it is being reported that former Governor Fashola is saying Tinubu's intervention not needed in Rivers, Ondo State. Well, you can read details of that story on the pages of the First News newspaper. We move now to this Nigeria newspaper. Still talking about the President Tinubu resolving Rivers crisis. And the writer here says, Fubara to recognize 27 defected lawmakers after meeting President. All impeachment proceedings against governor to be dropped. Lawmakers under Speaker Amehule will choose where to conduct legislative business. And another story here says National Assembly set to pass 2024 appropriation bill this week. Subcommittees get 48-hour deadline to submit reports. Ojakba TED Fund to repatriate Nigerian lecturers who absconded after sponsorship. That would be an interesting one. Coalition faults ECOWAS fresh sanction on Niger Republic. Federal government pays 376 billion naira electricity subsidy.
With the president's meeting with newspaper proprietors on Monday, and he's quoted as saying, "I will not allow businesses die on my watch." Hints on granting waivers to airline, road transport operators in festive seasons as the visitors, the newspaper proprietors that say seek tax waivers to cushion rising costs. All right, bank liquidity plunges to 300.68 billion naira in August of 2023, just as Nigeria's revenue increased by 181.82 billion naira in November. That's according to reports by the Federal Allocation Account Committee and the Central Bank of Nigeria. Next before us is the Punch newspaper, leading with the National Assembly speculations that the National Assembly may pass budget on Saturday this week as 541 MDAs end defense. Senate reps to harmonize appropriation bill eye Saturday for passage, as according to the spokesperson of the Senate. In the meantime, committee submitting reports January to December budget cycle will be sustained, says the committee chair. In other stories, 800 billion naira illicit drugs seized, more than 42,000 offenders nabbed. That's according to the NDLEA. And Pope Francis okays blessings for same-sex couples. On the front page of Voice of Liberty is this story: as the Yuletide draws nearer, Nigerian Christians face bleak Christmas over food inflation as well as rising costs of living. A Niger State governor bars civil servants from wearing native attires as well as kaftans and babariga to offices on work days. And Amnesty International is quoted as saying ex-President Buhari government extrajudicially executed 150 pro-Biafra protesters as well as 350 civilians in Zaria. End-of-year holidays still, Nigerians stranded over cash scarcity, network issues in banks. Right, Daily Trust says now that North's out-of-school children population time bomb, says the federal government. 680,000 in Kaduna, more than 500,000 in Gombe State. Bauchi mobilizing resources for educational projects, that's according to the governor. And more than or over 50% of private school teachers unqualified. In other stories on Daily Trust, abducted 150 Maru villagers, 3 dead as bandits remain silent on ransom. Tinubu pledges to review policies in the newspaper industry. We've captured that earlier. Resigned commissioners to return as Tinubu resolves Wike Fubara feud. Next before us is the Daily Independent, saying sack of CEOs, directors in one fell swoop puts aviation at risk. Stakeholders fear over success of ICAO safety corrective plans. Finger Nigeria Air project as reason for sector's mass purge. Anyaoku, Adebanjo, Kalu, Agbakoba, others set agenda to rescue Nigeria. On the eyepiece exemption, SANU asks federal government to consult varsity management for seamless payment platform. And TRCN seeks power to prosecute unqualified teachers' institutions. And finally is the Guardian newspaper, leading with this report that Nigerians may burn over 1.5 trillion naira on cooking gas in 2024 amid incentives. There are further diagrams to that effect as looking about the rise of the price of cooking gas. But other stories read as follows: Nigeria's delegation to COP28 insensitive to economic reality. That's the editorial. Senate gives panels 48 hours to submit 2024 budget reports. INEC plans reruns by elections for February 2024. And in Oyo State, over a said 3.5 billion naira debt, court freezes Oyo government's accounts in 10 banks. These are some of the stories in the papers this morning.
Yeah, and the majority of them, the major story, well, going through all the papers has to do with Rivers State, the fact that the president waded into the matter.
Right.
There was some other interesting story. I was trying to get the details of the story of the teachers who failed professional exams. Over 3,000 of them sat for professional exams. About 3,963 of them failed that professional qualifying exam. Is quite, I don't know if I could say it's worrisome development, so to speak, because we've been talking about the education system and the fact that we need professionals to handle it because of the quality of our education, and seeing this number of persons fail professional qualifying exams. I wonder what you make of it.
Well, we saw a semblance of it in Kaduna State or thereabout, yes, when the former governor wanted to introduce professionalism, but of course it sparked so much controversies and asked the teachers to, kind of be readmitted, so to speak. They were made to write tests, and then the scores, the dismal scores of the teachers trended at the time. And with this report by the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria saying it's now seeking powers to prosecute unqualified teachers' institutions, as well as, said almost 4,000 teachers failing professional qualifying exams. It is a worrisome event because this is education and this is such a very sensitive profession, and the issue of garbage in, garbage out will definitely play out in this regard.
Yeah, and just to give better perspective to this in terms of the number, they said that about 10,636 passed, which is about 72.9%, and that those who failed are 3,963. One might say that the disparity is quite huge.
It is huge,
it is huge, but then it's still quite worrisome that we are still having
that chunk
of persons failing these exams. They are in schools teaching pupils. The impact on these pupils is not about the number necessarily, but it's about the impact they are making on these children who are said to be the leaders of tomorrow. So if they cannot pass these kinds of exams, one wonders what kind of impact they are having on these children. If they are looking forward to prosecuting teachers who fail, institutions who fail, it will be an interesting one, because I wonder how things will pan out with regards to that. We would still see people fighting back to say that, leave them for me, we can handle their failures and we'll give them what they should do for us, because we know that some schools need hands. They may not pay them enough, so these are the people they might want to recruit because they feel they are not as qualified.
Right.
So they want to recruit them. But then the impact on the children is what we are not looking at necessarily at the end of the day. Well, we hope to see some level of improvement in the coming days with regards to issues like this.